It's 7 p.m. Tuesday, September 3rd, here in Seoul.
And these are the top stories at this hour. South Korea's consumer inflation falls to a record low and the nation's GDP grows at a slower than expected pace. The government and the central bank, however, dismiss concerns over deflation.
President Moon Jae-in holds summit talks with State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi in Myanmar. He'll also meet with local business leaders to work on building closer economic ties with the ASEAN member nation.
The top diplomats of North Korea and China agreed to strengthen bilateral ties and closely work together to resolve issues on the Korean peninsula. Eyes are now on whether Wang, on a 3-day visit to Pyeongyang, will meet with Kim Jong-un.
And an autumn monsoon front drenches Korea with heavy showers and is set to last for several days. Korea also braces for Typhoon Ling Ling, which is expected to hit the peninsula later this week. NEWSCENTER begins now. Good evening and welcome to Arirang NEWSCENTER, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Arirang.
And I'm Han. Welcome to the program. We'll begin on the economic front. South Korea's consumer price growth hit a record low, remaining flat for the first time in August compared to last year.
But the government and the central bank dismissed concerns over possible deflation. Yoon Jung-min has our top story.
Statistics Korea announced on Tuesday that overall consumer prices remained unchanged in August compared to last year, something that has never happened and all the month data have been collected since 1965. In fact, the statistics agency said that with the rounding error, that amounts to a fall in prices. Since January this year, consumer inflation has stayed below 1%. The data show it was held down by lower prices for agriculture and fishery products and oil. In particular, agricultural goods fell some 11% on-year due to relatively stable weather conditions this summer. Oil prices were down more than 6%, driven by a drop in prices internationally and a temporary tax cut on fuel.
The longer that consumer inflation hovers around 0%, the worse it will be for the economy. There are growing concerns over deflation if the situation continues, but right now, we can describe it as quasi-deflation rather than full-scale deflation.
At an economic policy meeting on Tuesday, the finance ministry and the central bank said weak inflation data in recent months hasn't led to concerns about deflation just yet. Vice Finance Minister Kim Yong-bom said low consumer prices come more from the supply side rather than from demand. Bank of Korea's senior deputy governor Yoon Myeon-sik said low inflation has been seen widely across major economies since the global financial crisis. On the same day, the Bank of Korea revised the country's GDP growth down to 1% compared to the previous quarter to some $379 billion. The central bank mainly attributed the slow growth to sluggish exports and less government spending. By sector, growth in agriculture and fisheries fell more than 3%, while manufacturing grew slightly over 1%. The central bank also said real gross national income for April to June increased by 0.2% on quarter. That figure was slightly up due mostly to an increase in GDP, despite a fall in exports. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
President Moon Jae-in is in Myanmar for the second leg of his tour of Southeast Asia. He held talks with State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi less than an hour ago to discuss bilateral cooperation in various sectors. Let's get more details from our Park Hee-jun, who's traveling with the president. Hee-jun, fill us in.
South Korea and Myanmar have reaffirmed their shared values of people-centered peace and prosperity, and they're going to work closely together on that. Myanmar has always shown great support for President Moon's efforts for peace on the Korean peninsula, understanding that the job requires support from the international community as a whole. Korea and Myanmar will be working together for a peaceful and nuclear-free Korean peninsula. And acknowledging Myanmar's vision of bringing unity among the people, the South Korean president said he hopes Korea can help resolve the Rohingya crisis. And Korea is soon to host the South Korea-ASEAN Special Summit and the South Korea-Mekong Summit in Busan this November. The state councilor has vowed to make full efforts to ensure that the upcoming events are hosted successfully.
And Heejun, what about their economic cooperation? I understand President Moon has been seeking to widen the scope of the two countries' economic ties.
Right. We're still waiting for more details on the summit, but economic cooperation was definitely a key topic at the bilateral summits. So President Moon and State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi have agreed to jointly develop infrastructure in Myanmar so that they can enhance their economic partnership more efficiently. As part of such efforts, Korea and Myanmar have created a joint industrial complex. In fact, after spending a day here in Naypyidaw, President Moon leaves for Yangon tomorrow to visit the site. There, he will attend a business forum and a groundbreaking ceremony where he will also deliver a keynote speech. President Moon said today that it will attract more investment from Korean companies, ultimately leading to both countries' economic growth. Besides that, the Myanmar government will also establish a one-stop service center to help Korean companies enter to Myanmar and a Korea desk that aims to improve the environment for Korean businesses in the country. Currently, around 200 Korean firms are active in Myanmar. And all this is expected to accelerate the Moon administration's new Southern policy. This was also discussed earlier in the day when President Moon met his counterpart, President Win Mint. They've agreed to build stronger ties in many areas, including agriculture, education, science, technology, and startups. Like I said, we're still waiting to hear more on the summit, but for now, back to you guys.
Heejun, thank you. Keep us posted throughout this evening. China's Foreign Minister Wang is in Pyeongyang for a 3-day visit to North Korea. According to Beijing, Wang and his North Korean counterpart Lee Yong-ho talked about the current situation on the Korean peninsula. Our Oh Jung-hee has late details.
The foreign ministers of North Korea and China held talks in Pyeongyang on Monday, the first day of Wang Yi's 3-day trip to the north. China's foreign ministry says they share the latest on the Korean peninsula and promise to coordinate closely. Pyongyang and Beijing celebrate their 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations on October 6th. China's top diplomats stressed that Beijing wants to keep improving its friendly relations with the North and wants close coordination and cooperation in a range of fields. He added, regardless of the changes in the international situation, North Korea and China are on the same boat. The North's Ri responded that the two sides have opened a new era of friendship through the past 5 summits. Wang and Ri agreed to have a grand celebration of their 70th anniversary of diplomatic ties. The Chinese minister is to stay in the North Korean capital until Wednesday, and sources say that Wang could meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. This raises further speculation that Kim Jong-un could make his way to China in October as a return visit for Chinese President Xi Jinping's Pyongyang visit in June. If that happens, then it'll be the 6th summit between Kim and Xi. Watchers say that the North would want to deepen relations with China to up its leverage against the U.S. as Pyongyang-Washington nuclear negotiations have hit a snag. Despite the promise between Kim and Trump to restart working-level negotiations in July, the talks have yet to happen. The North has rather criticized Washington for its military drills with Seoul and remarks on sanctions, saying their hopes for talks are, quote, fading. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Pending military issues lie ahead between Seoul and Washington, and the two sides have recently discussed the commanding authority over the South Korean military after the transfer of wartime operational control from the U.S. to South Korea. The two sides have reached a compromise, but a few important questions remain that need clear-cut answers. Our Kim Ji-yeon at the Defense Ministry for us tonight.
The role of the U.S.-led United Nations Command after Washington completes the transfer of wartime operational control to South Korea was hotly contested by the two countries' militaries. This had fueled speculation that the U.S. would still maintain its military authority over the peninsula even after OPCON transfer. Multiple military sources confirmed that during the preliminary sessions conducted in the run-up to their combined command post training held last month, the South Korean and U.S. militaries debated on whether the UNC had operational authority over the South Korean military during times of peace, even after the envisioned OPCON transfer from Washington to Seoul. The two sides had reached a compromise before the actual training, largely thanks to the leadership of Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Park Han-gi and his rapport with U.S. Forces Korea Commander General Robert Abrams. But the incident highlights the need for a clear guideline before the OPCON transfer on the roles of the South Korean general who serves as the commander and an American general who takes on the role of a deputy. The occasion also exacerbates prevailing concerns of the UNC's expansion. Earlier in April, Deputy Commander of the UNC, Wayne Eyre, at Camp Humphreys in Pyeongtaek, said the UNC will stay on the peninsula even after the two Koreas end the armistice agreement. When asked about the command's role if a peace treaty can be reached, he replied that it'll depend on the UN Security Council and the political decision of the U.S., signaling the UNC's presence even after the event the two Koreas reunite. Already, the UNC has the means to exert more power. According to UNC's rules of engagement, excluding South Korea, it has 17 sending states that could send troops to the peninsula in wartime, enabling the U.S. to wield operational authority by establishing a multi-military command. The UNC could then utilize the 7 strategically designated United Nations flag bases, the rear bases in Japan, in which American strategic assets are expected to be mobilized in the event of a crisis in Korea. In light of this, Seoul's defense ministry responded that the UNC does not have operational authority over the South Korean military, but said it respects the UNC's efforts in maintaining the armistice agreement. The ministry added South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff will work closely with the UNC even after OPCON transfer. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Wrangling continues at the National Assembly over controversial Justice Minister nominee Cho Kuk. Just a day after Cho held an 11-hour-long marathon presser of his own, becoming Korea's first minister nominee to ever do so. The main opposition Liberty Korea Party also held a press briefing of its own to rebut the claims made by Cho over his allegations. Our Kim Min-ji with the details.
Following an impromptu marathon press conference by Justice Minister nominee Cho Kuk, the main opposition Liberty Korea Party took center stage on Tuesday to fire back. During the press conference, conservative lawmakers took turns refuting Cho's remarks regarding the allegations raised against him with data they collected, claiming he was lying.
In a nutshell, the nominee's press conference, in an attempt to deceive the people, only raised further allegations, and rather than winning sympathy, he aroused public anger. It was a monologue staged by the nominee referring no facts, witnesses, or opposition parties.
This came a day after Cho held a press conference to explain himself after a scheduled confirmation hearing on Monday and Tuesday was cancelled due to bipartisan wrangling over a list of witnesses. Fielding questions until the wee hours of Tuesday, Cho denied the allegations against him and his family. He said he did not exert influence to get his daughter preferential academic treatment, such as getting scholarships or being listed as a primary author of a thesis when she was in high school. Cho also addressed suspicions that his family made money by investing in a private equity fund based on information collected while working in a public post, saying that he didn't know the details or the purpose of the fund. Cho's press conference was welcomed by the ruling Democratic Party, which said it was an opportunity for the nominee to speak for himself about the allegations and that he was able to clarify them. However, the opposition bloc have called for a confirmation hearing, calling Monday's presser a show to deceive the people. Whether rival parties can reach a last-minute deal to hold a confirmation hearing remains to be seen. But regardless, the president is expected to push ahead with Cho's appointment, which will unlikely bring the parties any closer together. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, President Moon Jae-in has asked Parliament to send reports on the confirmation hearings for his 6 minister nominees by Friday, including Cho Kuk. Hearings have been held for 5 of them, but not for Cho. The President's Senior Secretary for Public Communications said today that Moon wants to go ahead and appoint them soon after he gets back from overseas this Friday. The hearing for Cho Kuk was supposed to be held on Monday and Tuesday, but that's fallen through because of corruption allegations surrounding him and his family. Adopting a report after a confirmation hearing is Parliament's way of expressing approval of the President's nominees, but it's not legally required. In fact, under the Moon administration, 16 high-level officials have been appointed without one. North Korea can reportedly now fire missiles with greater range and maneuverability that could threaten U.S. forces in the region. That's according to the New York Times on Tuesday, citing U.S. intelligence officials and experts. The paper stressed that the rapid improvement of the North's missile technology puts not only South Korea and Japan in more danger, but also threatens at least 8 US bases in these two countries, which house more than 30,000 troops. It added that the recent tests have shown that the North can launch solid fuel missiles that fly in unpredictable paths, possibly defeating US missile defense systems in the region, namely land-based Patriot and ship-based Aegis. But amid mounting concerns over the North's advancements in its arsenal, US President Donald Trump has downplayed the regime's recent missile launches, describing them as, quote, very standard. The government says South Korea's national football team could play its World Cup qualifying match in Pyeongyang next month. While Seoul is approaching the matter cautiously, there are also hopes that it could act as a springboard to revive inter-Korean dialogue. Won Jung-hwan reports.
The Unification Ministry said Tuesday that they will provide all the necessary support to hold a World Cup qualifier match between the two Koreas in Pyeongyang next month. The statement comes a day after the ministry first announced that they have relayed a message to North Korea, offering to host the match in Pyeongyang. While the ministry is still waiting for an official response from Pyeongyang, it said they will closely coordinate with the Asian Football Confederation and the football governing bodies of South and North Korea. The ministry also added that the formation of a joint cheering squad should also be considered between the two Koreas. Details have yet to be ironed out, but they plan to gradually sort out the size and composition depending on the progress of their bid to hold the match in Pyeongyang. As for the possibility of such sporting exchanges revitalizing the stalled inter-Korean dialogue, the ministry took a cautious stance, saying it is in no position to comment on the matter. Last month, North Korea expressed its intention to host the match at Pyeongyang's Kim Il-sung Stadium, after the two Koreas were placed in the same group for the second round of the 2022 FIFA World Cup Asian qualifiers. The match, if it takes place as planned in Pyeongyang on October 15th, will mark the first time that the two Koreas will play a World Cup qualifier in North Korea. During the qualification rounds for the 2010 World Cup, South Korea played its 2 away matches against North Korea in China because Pyeongyang requested the games to be held in a third country. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
Be sure to have an umbrella handy this week because the autumn monsoon season is here. On top of that, Typhoon Ling Ling is forecast to slam into the peninsula by the end of this week. Ji-young with the details.
The 13th typhoon of the season, Ling Ling, is likely to reach Korea by the weekend. If it stays on its projected path, the entire nation will be under its influence. Currently, it's lying several hundred kilometers southeast of Taiwan and gathering strength. According to the Korea Meteorological Agency, as of 3 p.m. on Tuesday, Ling Ling is forecast to approach the country's southernmost island of Jeju Friday morning. It is then expected to pass through the capital region en route to the eastern Gangwon-do province the following day. An expert at K-Weather, a private Korean weather agency, corroborated the National Weather Bureau's forecast, saying the typhoon is currently headed north toward Jeju Island.
Ling Ling is projected to reach full strength on Friday around 9 p.m., packing winds of up to 37 kilometers per hour, and the peninsula will be under its influence this weekend.
He added that heavy rain is expected.
Typically, autumn typhoons bring heavy downpours that are caused by the combination of warm oceans and cold air. Also, heavy precipitation is expected with the arrival of a typhoon coinciding with the autumn monsoon.
Meanwhile, the lower regions of Gangwon-do province and the southern parts of the country are already getting drenched, and by this evening, rain will also fall in the country's central and western regions. Also, parts of the southern coast and Jeju Island are receiving heavy rain of 10 millimeters per hour. Seoul and the surrounding regions will see up to 300 millimeters of precipitation by Thursday. Weather experts say the storm could cause serious damage if it hits the peninsula, so people are advised to make thorough preparations. Ji-young, Arirang News.
Japan's foreign ministry has replaced its top diplomat for Asian affairs at a time when bilateral ties between Seoul and Tokyo are at their worst in recent years. Shikegi Takizaki will oversee diplomatic issues with South and North Korea starting next Monday. He is currently in charge of the Ministry's Southeast and Southwest Asian Affairs Department and also of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. He'll replace Kenji Kanasugi, who will serve as Senior Deputy Foreign Minister for Economic Affairs. New methods devised by Korean scientists to evaluate the properties of two high-tech materials have been recognized as international standards. Graphene and silver nanoparticles have been identified as key substances in future technologies. Our Seon Young has more.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced on Tuesday the new methods developed by local scientists of defining and evaluating properties of graphene and silver nanoparticles have been accepted as international standards. The Korean Agency for Technology and Standards proposed two new methods to the International Organization for Standardization, an international standard setting body, after a 5-year review and verification process. Graphene is a single thin layer of graphite, the soft flaky material used in pencil lead. Stronger than steel and thinner than paper, the nanomaterial can be used to produce a range of high-tech goods, including high-speed semiconductor devices, displays, and secondary batteries. Silver nanoparticles are microscopic grains of silver between 1 nanometer and 100 nanometer in size. 1 nanometer is equivalent to 1 billionth of a meter. The substance is used to manufacture solar cells, textiles, and displays. This achievement is especially notable as Korea was competing against the world leaders in this discipline, such as the United States, the United Kingdom, and Japan. Japan is also known to have devised new standards to measure and evaluate the properties of silver nanoparticles in direct competition with Korea. 서은경, Arirang News.
While the U.S. and China are yet to agree on when to hold their next round of trade talks, China has lodged a complaint with the WTO over America's tariffs, fueling concerns that their trade tensions will only get worse. Our Hongyu with more.
China has lodged a complaint with the World Trade Organization over Washington's tariffs that it says affect $300 billion of Chinese exports. The move comes after U.S. imposed new duties on Sunday of 15% on $125 billion worth of goods. Regarding the complaint, the Chinese Commerce Ministry said in a statement on Monday that the tariffs violate WTO regulations and demolish international rule and trade order. Beijing said it plans to protect its legitimate rights and interests in accordance with the relevant WTO regulations and also protect the multilateral trading system. This is the third time China has lodged a complaint with the WTO over President Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods. With the escalating trade tensions between the U.S. and China, the world's two economic superpowers seem less likely to sit down for negotiations in September. Despite President Trump putting in efforts to make it look as if trade talks are making progress, Bloomberg reports that they have failed to reach a basic agreement on when to meet to discuss the trade dispute. Bloomberg cited people familiar with the discussions who asked not to be identified and clarified this is not a sign that the meeting will not happen, but it will take time. China had made a request over the past week to delay new tariffs, but the U.S. did not back down and the tariffs took effect over the weekend. Now that another complaint has been filed, the U.S. will have to settle the latest dispute within 60 days under WTO rules. Hongyu, Arirang News.
Artists from around the world will gather in Seoul next month to showcase their art performances. The 2-week Seoul Performing Arts Festival, one of the largest festivals of its kind in Korea, will kick off on October 3rd. Our cultural correspondent Lee Min-sun tells us more.
One of the Korea's largest and the most prestigious contemporary performing arts festivals is slated to kick off on October 3rd for the 19th year. The Seoul Performing Arts Festival features various performance genres from theater, dance, and cross-genre arts from local and international artists. Artists from 10 countries, including Germany, Denmark, Russia, and Israel, will feature in a total of 19 performances, hoping to set an international standard in contemporary performing arts. Performances invited to the festival present independent characters who live in contemporary times, who are portrayed from different perspectives to give something to think about for the spectators.
This year's festival will feature 19 performances that shed light on various social issues through contemporary arts. While previous festivals focused more on theater and dance performances, we included cross-genre arts in this year's edition. I hope this festival can evolve into an event that can encompass a wider range of art genres.
Artists from Russia's Gogol Center, known for its experimental arts, will showcase a dance performance titled Kafka as the opening performance of the festival, focusing on the life of Bohemian novelist Franz Kafka. Spectators will have chance to enjoy internationally recognized performances as well, including a hip-hop-based dance performance titled Borderline by German and French artists, and an award-winning Belgian puppet show titled The Forgotten Land, which is a fictional account of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. The performing arts market in Seoul will also open for 4 days during the festival. The market provides an opportunity for international artists and others to build connections and promote Korean performances to local and international distributors. The 19th Seoul Performing Arts Festival will be held from October 3rd to 20th at 4 art venues including Sejong Center, Arco Art Theater, and Daehangno Art Theater. 이민선, 아리랑 뉴스.
South Korean Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon met Monday in Seoul with the chief of an association of lawmakers from Japan and Korea to discuss the current diplomatic tensions. According to Japan's Kyodo news agency, he met for 2 hours with Takeo Kawamura of Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party. The report said they talked about how they might hold a summit meeting between their country's leaders, but the report did not offer details. Prime Minister Lee took the opportunity to express Seoul's position on Japan's export restrictions on South Korea, as well as Seoul's withdrawal from the bilateral intelligence sharing pact. Kawamura is in Seoul to attend a cultural exchange event. Amid the trade war between Seoul and Tokyo, demand for overseas travel to Japan plunged in August compared to a year ago. Local travel agencies Hanatour and Modotour said their sales of travel packages to Japan fell by 77% and 83% respectively. Hanatour added that anti-government protests in Hong Kong have also hurt its overall sales of overseas tour packages, which dropped by 31% on year despite the peak season. Modotour's overseas packages also saw a drop of 29%. Trade officials from South Korea and Malaysia will hold their 3rd round of FTA talks in Seoul for 3 days starting Wednesday. The two sides are likely to discuss ways to foster free markets and economic cooperation and establish rules on customs. Malaysia is one of South Korea's major trading partners in Southeast Asia, with more than $19 billion in trade volume last year. The push for an FTA is in line with President Moon's new Southern policy, which aims to boost cooperation with the ASEAN bloc. North Korea says it has created dozens of new ICT departments at North Korean universities to strengthen education in advanced technologies. State media says 75 new ICT departments had been set up across the nation's universities over the past several months. Courses on offer include robotics, information security, and nanomaterials. Observers see this as a move by the North to catch up with the rest of the world in advancing technology. That has been your 3-minute news flash. It's now time to take a look at Arirang's digital media content.
And today we have another episode of When in Korea or Wink with Justin.
Hello, 안녕하세요. 피디님들 오랜만이에요. What's this?
자, 그래서 오늘의 미션은
착한 거 아니에요? 야, she works here. What's going on?
It's called Arirang V Dance.
Arirang V Dance. V 2/20 20th anniversary. So smart. Okay. Okay. I mean, all right. I'll try my best. Okay, we're going like that. I got this. Very fast. We go. 1, 2, 1, 2. A little bit of shaky. I think we're good. I got it.
Nope.
2 hours later.
1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey! 네, 쉽지가 않네 요즘. So a lot of young kids, I'm hearing that they do this. 귀엽죠?
It's cute.
It's cute? You being honest?
Yeah.
어때요? 어때요?
재미없어요. 재미없어요.
재미없어. 1, 2, 3, 4. 하나, 둘, 셋, 넷. 3, 4. And then use your butt. 3, 4. Okay. 7, 8. And that's it. Okay. 준비되셨어요? 도전. 그냥 하면 돼. 생각하지 마. 모르면 그냥 NI 하고 그냥 해. 화이팅. Alright, ready? 2, 1, go. 하트 주고. 1, 2, 3, 4. Funny ears. Boom, boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, groove. 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go, there you go. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. That was awesome. 너무 잘해. 직접 해보셨잖아요. 재밌었어요?
재밌는 것 같아요.
Yeah, it's like goofy, it's fun. Okay, I get it. 1, 2. 자괴감이 될 것 같아. 자괴. B. 맞아. 도전. 오케이, 그럼 한번 가볼게요. 토끼. 맞죠? Yo, she's good. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh my god. 너무 잘하는데? 틱토커세요 혹시? 수점이. 진짜 홍보.
그렇게 유명하진 않고요.
65,000. Holy, that's 65,000.
과하게 신나게 크게
2, 3, 4.
쇼 플랫폼이다 보니까 표정도 좀 더 다양하게. 이건 되게 귀여워요. 이런 거는 간단하고 쉬우니까 하실 건가요?
해줄 수 있어요?
해야죠. 당연히 해야 되는 거 아니에요? 당연히 해야 되는 거 아니에요?
토끼. 이거 안 할 것 같아 친구들이?
할 것 같기도 하면서 안 할 것 같기도 해요.
아.
상품이 걸려 있어. 네? 100% 하죠.
The autumn monsoon rain that's been coming down in the south is expected to spread nationwide tonight.
Let's get more details from our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Now, the precipitation in the southern region is forecast to move across the central and surrounding regions starting tonight. And by tomorrow, the rain will have overtaken the remaining heat from the air. But as the rain becomes heavier, we should watch out for any damage and flooding that may occur from the heavy precipitation. Now, for a couple of days, Seoul, Gyeonggi-do, and also Chungcheon-do and western parts of Gangwon-do provinces will receive more than 300 millimeters of rain. Now, whereas the southern coast will have to endure the next heaviest amount of rain at 150 millimeters of precipitation. Now, the rest of the inland regions will also receive up to 100 millimeters of rain. Now, going over to our readings for tomorrow, morning lows will be about the same for most regions, lingering between 21 to 22 degrees Celsius, except for Jeju, where it remains hot at 25 degrees. And into the rainy afternoon, there isn't much of an increase. Seoul topping out to 25 degrees, Daegu to 26, Busan 27, and Jeju at 28 degrees. Now, the monsoon rain will clear as of Thursday, but the impact of the Typhoon Ling Ling will drench the nation, accompanied by some strong gust of winds from Friday throughout our weekend. Now, I'll leave you with weather conditions around the world.
That will do it for this edition of Arirang News. Thank you, as always, for watching.
News in Depth is next.